Hey folks, Dave here and I like knives, and this is my knife box. My box is a Pelican style Amazon special and contains within it everything that I truly love and hold most dear in this world, in a somewhat particular order. I try to keep them grouped by brand and, well, these big ones are by size, because that SOG CLXR, that's not going to fit in any of these small ones. But to begin the story, we do have SOG CLXR. Big old beastie. I hot diggity love this thing, but it is way too big for any of these smaller slots. Also in the big slot, the Benchmade Boost. I am so sad this thing is getting discontinued. Benchmade Adamas, whatever, Adams. This, I am actually very excited for the new version of this. If I did not already have this one, I would be very excited for that, because like the handles are more contoured, and this thing needs a this is a brick, this is a boat anchor, it's absurd. To round out the biggins, Gerber 06 Auto. Gerber autos are not the most quality controlled thing in the world, but yeah, it's fine. It's a good knife. It's just, I'll talk about this more at a later date. I have opinions. To begin the Spyderco route, we have the Spyderco Delica Emerson Wave. This is one of my very most favorite knives and one of my most carried in a non-work situation. Then we have a couple of Enduras, that's the Blade Plus Wharncliffe in the VG10, as well as the ZDP. Glad that this recently got updated to the K390, but the K390, there isn't a wave and coated version, which there obviously should be. Spyderco, give us a make your own page. We have a couple of Manixes with the 110V in my Dave's Doubles videos, which I essentially made at the very beginning of my channel so that I could remember how to talk on camera. I talked about how S110 and Maximet were two of my dream steels, and the lightweight Manix and Native are kind of the cheapest versions to get it. So a little bit later on, because it's not as big, so it doesn't need the 3 slots, it only needs the 2, is also a Native 5 lightweight. It's Manix. It's small, it doesn't weigh very much, and it's Manix. Going back in, the Spyderco Manix 2 and M390. This is what I am currently carrying for my work week. I've been carrying this for a couple of weeks because what I'm doing at work changed a little bit, so I'm not using it quite as much as I was in the beginning of the work week series. So I am going to be carrying that one a little bit longer than I have in the past. Then we have my paramilitary 2s. These obviously are not all of the ones that I have, they're just all the ones in this box. That's the standard in 10V. Next, of course, we have the 2 fun ones, which the 10V is super fun as well, but there's your Tonto, as well as your Karambit. What? It has a Karambit ring. I'll never show you how to put one of those on. Then we have the Yojimbos. These are my 2 Yojimbos. The top one with the M4 scales is actually the S30V Blackout, and I switched the blade so that the M4 is the regular looking one. With the 5x5 Combat Solutions little additions there. My favorite small knife other than the Delica is this little baby, lightweight Para 3. This thing is a feather. I think I call this the gym shorts knife. Something a little bit bigger, and really my first mod was putting on these, I forgot who makes them, Campfire, somebody, Firelight, somebody. Makes these micarta handle scales. Turo Tough, I think is the actual term. So that's the M4 Shaman with micarta scales. This is what I'm probably going to be doing in my next work week carry. I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see how the micarta kind of starts wearing in with more consistent more consistent use. Then we come into my ZTs. This is the 095. These I don't know as well. I don't know the names as well because they're numbers that don't mean anything. But we can see a little bit of tiger striping. This, of course, is the 062 in tiger striping. This one I have had to mod quite a little bit to get it where I want, but now that it is, hot dog is this thing sweet. The 95 also did not come with nearly a strong enough detent, so I've got it tuned in to almost where I want it. This is an S90V. I think the actual standard run was an S35. I'm not entirely sure why this one's S90. Maybe they all were S90. I don't know. I think this one was a Blade HQ exclusive at the time. Next, one of my favorite knives. It does not get carried very much. It's the 620, the Emerson design. It does not get carried very much, but this is probably my Metal Complex has made several videos about the Apocalypse knife, and I think this is my response to that video. Heavy duty Tonto L Max G10. It doesn't have a Torx driver, so any like a wrench bit that you have will do, socket bit. Has the titanium handle with the steel insert, unlike the next one. This does have the steel insert, so it's not going to wear over time. 620 is, I would argue, one of the best and most solid knives ever built. Gosh darn love this thing. This is the 550. The 560, I think, is the bigger version, which I also would like, because that one actually has a little bit of texturing on the lock side, and that I would imagine, I can only imagine, I've never handled one, would make it stay a little bit better in the pocket. Because this is so smooth, it does have a tendency to slide around. And because this does not have a steel insert, it can develop a little bit of lock rock over time. I believe that the orange scales, I'm not sure, I bought this one on eBay, so I guess the guy before me installed the red scales. And they do orange scales, and they do give a little bit of texture. I got some scales, well, a scale, to replace this, but unfortunately it just ended up being so slick that I had to go back. I believe that later versions of this knife do have the steel insert, which I love this thing. I just wish that it didn't develop a little bit of lock rock. Not a huge problem, but as much as I sit there and play with it, it's something that develops long over time, and it had partially developed by the time that I got it. Next we have the Griptilians. This one is D2. Full-size Griptilian. I think Blade HQ like only carried these for a weekend or something like that. But that's D2 Griptilian, so it was the cheapest grip at the time. Had to get it. And this is my only thing that I have done on the Benchmade custom site. I made it an S95 Tonto, blacked out hardware, blue handles, had a honeybee, super zoomed in on both sides, and moved just one of the directions so that this one is purely unique. I like these. Someone very close to me absolutely adores them, and this one's for them. My little bee Griptilian. Next is the Super Freak. This is probably objectively one of the best things that Benchmade has ever made, and I shouldn't say objectively, in my opinion, is one of the best things that Benchmade has ever made. The sequel will often get thrown into that argument, and I've never handled it, so in my opinion, one of the best things. Big ol' M4 blade, full flat, nice and slicey, incredible action. My one problem is that the scales are so slippery slidey. I really do wish that they were a little bit more griptified G10, I suppose, but great knife overall. Then we have the Doug Ritter Hogue, or the Hogue Ritter, I don't know what this is. But this is actually a fascinating story behind this thing. This is in 25 CV. This is a Blade Ops, I believe. I think it's Blade Ops exclusive. And actually, immediately after I ordered this, like a week later, they started carrying one with a coyote handle, which, but I already have one and this thing's beautiful. Fascinating story behind this one. Benchmade used to carry it when Benchmade still made HK and Hogue products, and then eventually, I guess it was when that branding split, Benchmade dropped this model and Hogue picked it up. You know, they actually made this before, my understanding is before the Access Lock went live. So before Hogue was able to produce the Able Lock, this was the only one that they produced with the sliding bar lock style, because it was an already existing model that they were legally allowed to use it before they were legally allowed to use it. So, fascinating story, great knife. Have a Benchmade clip on there because I hate consistency, which is why I have so many of those. Benchmade Contigo, this one is also Bladeworks. It's not Blade Ops, Bladework, or Knifeworks. The Ritter Hogue is a Knifeworks exclusive, as well as this. This is a Contigo in M390 in a absolutely gorgeous handle. The original Contigo was released in M4, that was the standard run, and of course because of that, like all proper M4 knives, was coated. I wish this one were as well, but it's M390, so it's not a huge problem. The only real differences between this one and the standard is that it does not have a glass breaker, which I love, and this was released with gray handles and black and blue and black. This was, in my opinion, most certainly the prettier of them. Also, stupid cheap. The Contigo, the original run, was like $200. This one I bought at like, I think it was $130-ish, because, well, they carried them for a while and then had a clearance sale. You grab it on clearance, you get good deals. Then we have, and this is kind of my big knife section. That's the end of that's the end of the big Benchmades. We got a couple more Benchmades that are a little bit smaller. This is the Cold Steel Recon 1, which in a little bit you will also watch me tantize. This is the obviously the Desert Warrior Blade HQ exclusive version. My absolute biggest problem with this thing is that they didn't copper out the hardware as well. If that's something that, like, on the picture before I ordered it, I had noticed, I wouldn't have gotten this one. I would have gotten a full black version. Because having the green handles with the gold blade that looks, or the bronze blade that looks awesome, having the silver pocket clip, thumb stud, yada yada, it bothers me. I wish it were all blacked out, and given a chance to do over again, I would have. I think this one's the Blade Ops exclusive. This, many of y'all might not have known existed, is a Kalashnikov XL and a recurve Tonto. It is the most Mall Ninja murderous just thing that I have in this box, except that it's chisel ground. And that super bothers me. I hate only having a blade on one side. I love this thing, and I'm going to do a work week with it, but it's chisel ground. Again, when I ordered this, there were no pictures on the site of the backside of the blade. Give pictures of full context, please. I don't know why that's so difficult for some. Here we have the ZT566. It might have been this one that the 560 was a bigger version of this. I said that about this. I think it's actually about this one. I don't remember properly. ZT is just numbers, and that's dumb. But this is one of the very few assisted knives that I have in here. And again, I've talked about this in the past, but hot dog the modifications that I had to do to make this thing carryable. Absurd. Now getting back into Benchmade, but just smaller ones. The Casbah, Kabash, I don't recall. This is the weirdest sharpening choil I have ever seen. It's weird looking. It doesn't go in the plunge grind. It's just it's weird. Interestingly, it actually has the same pocket clip as the Infidel, the testicle OTF. This is a sweet little knife and my first nice automatic. It is actually why I originally, not that one. It's a different Kalashnikov. I have two, well, I guess I have three. Kalashnikov. The first one, the first Boker Kalashnikov that I got was the cheapest that I could find, and I got it to make sure that I liked side-opening automatics, because this was much more expensive at the time and way out of my price range at the time, and I wanted to make sure that I was doing something that I actually supported. So I recommend that. If you ever want to invest in a very nice thing, first invest in a decent thing to make sure that you can roll with the core concept. So that's the Benchmade Kabash, Casbah, bothers me every time I say it, as well as Boker Kalashnikov, Wharncliffe, Hot Dog. I need to disassemble this and clean it out. That'll probably be my next disassembly. But the Wharncliffe, I love that it's coated, but it's all as a make a coated D2 version of this, please. Yes, I know, people keep commenting on my various Kalashnikov videos that, well, there's a D2 version over here and an S30. Yes, I understand that. There used to be an XHP, there's an S30 somewhere. Blade Ops carries a variety of D2 models. However, none of those models are coated or in the extra blade styles, except for Blade Ops, which carries miniatures. What I want is a Wharncliffe, I don't know why that's, what I want is a Wharncliffe D2 coated. If it's not all of those, I don't care. Then is another knife that I don't actually care about very much. This is the, you can see how much I've used this for fire striking. This is the KnifeWorks exclusive Benchmade Hidden Canyon, I think. This had such an opportunity to be a good knife, except the black is rubber, the blue is plastic, and you might not be able to see it, but the plastic and the rubber are on the same level instead of the plastic being raised above it. So while the rubber does give a good grip and hand, it makes it nearly impossible to get this thing into and out of your pocket. There is no excuse for it being made this way. There is no excuse whatsoever. And it completely ruins an otherwise fine knife. It's got a sweet action, but I literally cannot put this in my pocket. I am physically incapable of putting this in my pocket. Good knife ruined. Then we have Benchmade Mini Grip. I've got no idea where I got this thing from. It is obviously not in a style that I would ever order for myself. I don't really like serrations. They're multiple uses, but I don't have use in every day for those multiple uses. A Benchmade Barrage in blacked out Tanto. I have a mini Barrage hanging around somewhere. Sweet knife, hot dog does it kick, and it actually kicks so hard that it kicks itself into a little bit of lock stick. It's always funny for me whenever I play with it. This is the Spyderco Delica, one of many. This one is in crew wear with blacked out blade and hardware, which is objectively, and I said objectively early and walked it back, I'm going to say objectively here and stick to it, objectively the correct way to do this. Blackout hardware, blackout blade. Now, give me a blackout K390 with an Emmy hook. It's all I want. Next to last, my penultimate Benchmade auto is the Stimulus. And this is such a sweet little thing. This, of all of my automatics, this is probably the one that I carry the most. Despite me not really having an affinity for small knives, and also this safety system being inexcusably bad. It's just so snappy, it's a little dagger point. This is just a good knife, and I think is currently the least expensive Benchmade auto. So if you want a decent auto, if you want a really good automatic, this is up there. Not the cheapest automatic, not the cheapest good automatic on the market, but I think it's the cheapest Benchmade automatic. And then we have the least value Benchmade auto in the 9400. The review for this one just recently went up, and yeah, I love this thing, but it is stupid expensive, and there are other options for you is what I'm saying. Funnily enough though, and I just noticed this today, it actually kicks so hard. I think that's the reason that it kicks so hard, that the pivot didn't have any kind of Loctite, so it has been slowly backing itself out. So I was playing with this thing earlier and realized how much blade, and it's because that the pivot had backed itself out. So take it out, a little bit of Loctite, everything's fine. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of my knife box. Part 2 coming soon. I do have a lot of interesting stuff over here on this side. If this has been interesting to you, or if you have questions, comments, or concerns, let me know down below. And other than that, y'all have a great day.